YouTube Shorts, LinkedIn disinformation, and why Wordle will always be free. That and more today on the podcast. Thanks for joining us. We have some interesting information to go over today as we've gotten Q4 reports from YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and some other companies. And interestingly, LinkedIn released their transparency report, which looks at disinformation on their platform, spam accounts, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to go into that. And we'll also talk today about why, even though the New York Times just bought Wordle, it'll probably always remain free, or at least some version of it. So that and more on today's podcast. So let's just jump right in. Right off the bat, one of the things I wanted to talk about today was YouTube Shorts, not their pants, YouTube Shorts, as in shorter video clips that they're pushing on the platform. Now, right now, there's this big debate, thanks to creators like Hank Green, about the monetization policy of videos on both YouTube and TikTok. TikTok has a pool, and as more creators are added to that pool, less is made by the creators. Well, YouTube has a different model with their ads and being one of the big fuelers, if not the biggest fueler, of the creator economy. So let's just take a look. This is some information from Social Media Today, a website that breaks down a lot of information in the social media realm. They're a great resource to sign up for their newsletter if you ever get the chance. As we have this ongoing YouTube and TikTok sort of battle, kind of, I say that as, like I mentioned earlier, creators have brought up how the monetization policy is different, how they make more on one than the other, and how TikTok should change its model, especially as things change with how the creators work on the platform and how big the platform gets. But in this report, according to Alphabet's CEO, they saw a continuous rise in momentum on their accounts. YouTube generated $8.6 billion in ad revenue in just their fourth quarter of 2021. While for the full year, YouTube brought in $28.8 billion in advertising income. And their CEO even said, YouTube Shorts continues to drive significant engagement. We just hit 5 trillion all-time views and have over 15 billion. Be with a billion views each day globally. This is helping our creator community reach newer and bigger audiences. In fact, more people are creating content on YouTube than ever before. Last year, the number of YouTube channels that made at least $10,000 in revenue was up more than 40% year over year. And we're continuing to improve support for artists and creators. Very timely with that message about continuing to provide ways to support artists and creators as that monetization debate continues to ensue in the creator community. Throughout 2021, YouTube, and they're great for paying creators, they've definitely evolved over the years to become much more creator friendly now that they've realized, that platform is going to be the reason people are going there is because of their creators. They paid out $15 billion in YouTube ad revenue to creators in 2021 alone. Now, it's kind of interesting to contrast the two. TikTok is much shorter content. Obviously, a lot of it is under a minute, most of it under 15 seconds, while YouTube really pushes the more long-form stuff, videos averaging, around 8 to 10 minutes, especially because they can add, a couple ads in there. And that's a big push for creators to move from TikTok to YouTube. It's going to be interesting to see what TikTok does in the coming year, because I think it's going to have to be this year they make a big push to show their creators how appreciative they are with whatever policy that might be before they start losing creators to YouTube and create a bigger problem for themselves than they should. Let's talk about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is obviously a professional platform where it's meant for people in, more job-oriented, looking for careers, posting about career updates. That's always been kind of LinkedIn's model, and they're pushing a lot of e-learning now. I've talked about before how I think e-learning has a huge future. Only 40% of Fortune 500 companies right now are using e-learning, and a lot of predictions only expect e-learning to grow. Over here on the website, I'll throw it up on screen, it says our transparency report. We strive for transparency and accountability in the actions we take to protect our members. How we handle inquiries for member data, how we respond to content removal requests, etc., etc. Always love to see this from LinkedIn. Just a way to kind of show how they're handling misinformation and disinformation and making it, publicly available and publicly known. Always love to see that. I'm going to show you this just chart real quick that kind of shows the difference between accounts reported versus accounts removed by LinkedIn, which is pretty interesting. A pretty great job at removing, proactively removing these accounts that are getting made. That could be spam or scam accounts. Still several, 232,000 reported and removed, but it's interesting to know, over 66 million accounts proactively removed by LinkedIn. How many there are on that platform, how many fake accounts make it, we don't know. I think that goes with any social media. It's very hard to track that, but it is interesting to see the number of spam and scam accounts that LinkedIn is able to catch, whether that's in the creation stage or early on. So very interesting. Now let's head on over to another graphic. Again, important to note, this is last year between January and June. It'll be interesting to see the numbers that follow the other half of the year, but let's just take a look at this. Misinformation, the most removed post from the app. Very closely behind it, only by a couple hundred, is harassment or abusive content. So misinformation is at the top, followed by that harassment and abusive content, and then a huge decline to violent or graphic, adult, hateful or derogatory, and 101 child exploitation. It's kind of crazy to think about all that on LinkedIn, how much we don't see that goes on in the social media world. Because I know my LinkedIn, I have never seen misinformation or, abusive content on the platform. So it's very interesting to kind of see those numbers within this LinkedIn transparency report. Another thing I would love to show you is their government requests report. Now, they say this right here in their report. The report discusses how they respond to government requests for member data and removal of content as part of their commitment to a safe, trusted, and professional environment. They provide as much transparency as possible, especially about these government requests and member data. Again, just love to see this transparency from LinkedIn. And I'll just kind of show you, again, this chart from... You can kind of make do of the data yourself. As you saw in 2021, from January to June, the U.S., 362 requests for either content removal or data. And then there's the non-U.S. Areas outside of that. I'll also kind of bring up this map just to kind of show you where the users lie for LinkedIn. This is from apollotechnical.com. This data they compiled is from the official LinkedIn resources about page. So it's kind of interesting how they kind of broke that data down. You can obviously see the United States has the most users on LinkedIn. It does kind of make sense that the US might be the biggest in requesting for content removal and data. Now let's go over to what I think, a very interesting story posted in a tweet thread I saw the other day that I wanted to bring up. It's also digital news. New York Times recently acquired Wordle for an undisclosed amount. They are saying it's in the low seven figures. People's first reaction was, oh no, are they going to put up a paywall to make me use Wordle? What's going to go on here? New York Times has come back and said, it's initially going to be free, but a lot up in the air with Wordle now that the New York Times bought it and what that kind of means for Wordle. So interesting post here. It's on The Verge, which quote tweets a thread on Twitter that basically shows how, Wordle is and can always be free. They say it right there in the headline. Wordle will be free forever because you can right-click to save the whole game. Tested it out myself. You can do that. You can right-click and save the game. But why is that? Let's talk a little bit more about it. Now, I have no deep computer engineering background. I'm in no way a professional at this stuff, but I do know some pretty simple stuff, and this article kind of showcased it really well. So I kind of want to talk about that. So let's take a look at this tweet thread by Aaron. Oh boy, Reich. I'm just gonna call him Aaron. Interesting thread here. Wordle is a tiny game that runs entirely in the browser. The daily words are right there in code in a giant list. There are thousands of them. And obviously you could look at the words right now. Why would you do that? That's no fun. But he goes on to say that you could save a copy of the website right now, unplug your computer from the internet, never hook up to the internet again, and you could still be going to Wordle every single day. Here they go again saying the New York Times initially suggested it will initially be free. So obviously a lot of people going, oh, I don't want to lose my Wordle, which is a very interesting thing. The Wordle and its phenomenon in itself, how people started posting to Twitter and how it really became kind of a cultural trend for, January to February. Very interesting. The article does bring up, and I'm going to reiterate it, there is an intriguing question here on if this, could be copyright infringement. So I'm going to say what he says, and I'm not going to recommend that you do any of the above, but it goes on to add how saving web pages for offline use is kind of a time-honored feature in a lot of these browsers. So their conclusion, and what I'm hoping they're right about, is that Wordle will kind of stay free forever. And even if it doesn't, there is a way to get it free forever. Again, not recommending that you do it. But just an interesting look in how, even though the New York Times bought Wordle, whether that was more or less just more name awareness for the New York Times, a really good, PR move, or if they have actual plans for it, who's to say? But just kind of an interesting look there, thanks to The Verge in that article and that awesome tweet thread. And that is all we have on the podcast today. Hopefully, it was kind of insightful just to see kind of how these social media companies are operating as this Q4 data came out and why Wordle will probably be free forever. Fingers crossed. Got it in 2 the other day, which was just pretty cool. Okay. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time on The Digital World.